Hello, and welcome to the show Goldsquadrongays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and I promise to not look at Twitter for the duration of recording this episode. It's gonna be really hard. I'm turning my phone upside down, so I can't actually see notifications that come through. I'm gonna try to focus for roughly 30 to 45 minutes on this episode of Star Wars.
Okay, great. I know it's going to be hard to do.
It's going to be so hard to do. For context, we are recording this episode Saturday morning. Saturday morning my time. It's Saturday afternoon Bradley's time. Day 2 of Star Wars Celebration is in the middle of wrapping up. And I woke up this morning to just a deluge of stuff. At time of recording, I haven't been able to check half of my social media just because there's so much to go through right now.
Yeah.
Insane. But we won't be talking about that today.
No, we can't. I mean, this would be a 3-hour podcast if we
physically
had combined.
Can't.
Yeah, it would just never work.
We physically can't. It would be like 55 minutes of Celebration news and then also the Bad Batch concluded recently. Now, I will say there is supposed to be a Bad Batch panel, I think, tomorrow.
See, I was going to debate whether or not we should have recorded this today, because what if they announce something? But, I mean...
They probably will announce something. If they do announce something, the editing gods may drop something in the middle here.
There you go.
To say what it was they announced. And moving back to season 2 of the Bad Batch from whatever it was that was just there. Season 2. This is our retrospective episode. I'm a little off because the Celebration news has unbalanced me, but we're gonna focus and we're gonna get this done. Bradley, you want to take us into our the Bad Batch season 2 retrospective?
Yeah, so I guess we can just start off by talking about, well, I don't know. Do you want to do like what we got right and what we got wrong of this season? Because I think we're pretty spot on.
We were pretty spot on. I didn't have a chance to listen to our old episode.
Okay.
But just remembering off the top of my head, I know that I got Sid betraying them wrong. I know that we got Plan 99 being somebody sacrifices themselves.
Somebody dying, right? Okay.
These are the things I remember. I can't remember if we called Tech dying or not.
I think we thought it might end up being Echo and not Tech.
Yeah, I think that was Echo.
Yeah, I think that was kind of more because he's not technically a part of the Bad Batch. So I think that's why we were like, oh, well, in a sense, he's expendable because he's a reg. Right. So that's why we thought. But little did we know.
Yeah, I think we got a decent number of things right, but I don't think it was that much. We definitely didn't call things like Dr. Hemlock. We definitely didn't call things like that old thing on Ariadu. Like, all that came out of nowhere. And then some of the stuff was like stuff that was going to be in the trailers. Like, I thought Rampart was going to be the villain the whole season. I didn't think they were going to casually get rid of him in episode 8 and replace him with a totally different villain.
Right, which was weird of them to do. I mean, well, I wouldn't say it's weird. I would just say that it's definitely a choice to just kind of up and change your villain halfway through.
It is a choice to do that mid-season. Like, that's the thing you do between seasons. Like, season 2 ends with Rampart being disgraced and removed from power. And now season 3 opens with Dr. Hemlock. But they did it in the middle of the season.
Yeah, I guess it's because we figured... we did talk about this a little bit when we were getting to that halfway point, which was this was the halfway point of the series.
Right. My theory is it's only going to be 3 seasons, that they've had their Empire Strikes Back cliffhanger ending, and they're going to do one more season of this, and then the animation's going to move on to something else.
I agree. I think it's time. And also, I think the story has almost run its course. I mean, I don't really know, like, what they've set up in season 1 of, like, you know, the Empire is kind of taking over. There's not really much more you can do with that other than we're on the run constantly. Like, I don't know what else they can do.
They kind of ended that with the Truth and Consequences episode. That was sort of the finale of what was initially set up all the way back in Aftermath.
Right.
Was, by which I mean the episode, not the book, was that, what are the clone troopers going to be now? And the 2-part Coruscant episodes, which may be my favorite episodes of the season, Like, they were so good, really dealt with that and brought it to a resolution with the announcement of the Imperial Stormtrooper program. So that's kind of dealt with. Like,
Yeah.
we've resolved that arc, and now it's like, what's going to happen to the clones now that they're no longer soldiers anymore? With all this that's happening on Mount Tantus, and then the potential of a clone uprising. And we know that from Rebels that Rex and Wolf and Gregor are going to end up in an ATTE in the middle of a desolate planet fishing in
Right.
the sand. So the question being, how does Rex get from what he's doing now, which is trying to rescue clones, to being alone on a planet with two of them? And we haven't even seen Wolf yet.
Right. So I'm wondering if he introduces him in season three, or they introduce him in season three to
I'll
kind of be
bet you they
like,
do.
yeah, he's like, hey, this is how we meet him. And then now they're all three together kind of thing. I think that's definitely where they're going with at least Rex's storyline. Because you got
Yeah,
to
because
connect it.
they introduced Gregor in season one, which was a nice surprise, and then he showed up briefly in this season. And then yeah, they haven't brought in Wolf yet, so I'm not predicting a happy ending for this show. I'm predicting a very not happy ending for this show.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way it looks like it to me, the way that they're going is that the clones never are going to have a happy ending because that's literally the nature of the saga so far.
No one
But
gets a happy ending in Star Wars.
right. But I feel like they will wrap it up, at least with Omega's story. She'll have a little bit more of a positive outlook for her kind of arc. I don't know about the rest of them, but I
Right.
mean, she
Well, here's a
might have a
question.
positive one.
What the fuck do we think is going on with Omega?
Yeah, I
Because I know you did
honestly,
want to cover this. What the fuck do we think is going on?
I don't know what they're doing. I'm genuinely baffled. I feel like we're pretty good at picking apart storyline or like kind of figuring out where the characters' stories are going. And there's something about Omega that they have just stumped me, like what the story is going to
The
be.
the best thing I can come up with is that yeah, she might be Django's biological kid, like not a clone.
Yeah,
And
I
like her
don't know.
records were altered, but I really don't want them to go with the whole records were altered thing because that would feel like I'm gonna reference it and I'm sorry. There's a scene in I think it's Family Guy that makes fun of this
Uh-huh.
where somebody like it's a scene where people are presented options and then it turns out to be like a secret fourth option or whatever, and one of the characters, the one who's presenting the options, is like, aha, you see, I tricked you. And one of the other characters goes, that wasn't a trick, you just lied to us.
Right.
That's not good storytelling, you just lied
You're
to
just
us.
lying.
So
Yeah.
I kind of hope it turns out that her records, like, because Tech also runs, like, well, it can't be that because Tech runs her DNA back in season one.
Right.
It's
And
not
he's
that
like,
he
she is a
accesses records, he says she is a clone of Django. So I don't get it. I don't get what's going. Is Emery a clone? And if that case, if Emery is a clone, whose goddamn white baby is that? Why does she have blonde hair? What is going on here? I'm so
I
confused.
I like the idea that I don't know how this happened, but maybe it did. I mean, I guess it would make somewhat sense. It's definitely possible. I feel like I like the storyline or the idea that Emery Carr is the biological daughter of
Oh,
Jango
you think
Fett.
they're flipped? You
Yeah,
think Emery's the biological daughter?
100%. I think that Omega might be a clone of Emery Carr and not a clone of
Oh,
Django. Does that
that's
make sense?
interesting. That's interesting.
Because that's the only way she could be a clone and be biologically female because it just doesn't like because that's not how cloning works. So I don't know how.
Unless she's trans, which I wish they would go that route, but they
Yeah.
probably won't, which is the problem. Which is
Well,
why I
yeah.
can't dismiss that offhand as being like, well, she's trans. I
Yeah.
wish they'd confirm it, but they won't
They
because
won't.
they're
Yeah.
cowards. Yeah, I love the idea that Emery Carr. Yeah, because Emery Carr would be about, if she's in her late teens, she'd be about the same age as Boba Fett.
Right. And she would be quote unquote unaltered in a sense. Like she has a natural growth pattern of a human. So yeah, I would assume it doesn't make, it's not outside of the possibility that Django could have sired an actual child with some random woman, but he is kind of a bounty
Well,
hunter scoundrel person, right? So,
here's also a thought, because we had a theory back in around season one. We had a theory that Django never knew Omega existed.
right.
My theory is now that we know from The Mandalorian how strand casting works, that you can actually go in and you can mix and match traits. I wonder if they went in and mix and matched some of Django's
Hmm.
And then Omega was just kind of there, and they passed Omega off. Like the Kaminoans had a secret, wanted their own secret source of Jango Fett DNA, but they didn't
Mm.
want Jango to know about it for reasons. So they like went in and messed with the hair color and
Right.
switched the gender over, and then were like, "Oh no, this kid is totally not a clone. This is an actual child that we have found randomly on our planet with no human people except for you. Can't believe this fortuitous coincidence."
I just thought of something else randomly. What if she's not the daughter of Jango Fett? What if she is the biological sister of Jango Fett?
Ooh.
So Jango is not an only child, therefore she just has similar, if not, if she what if she's just a twin of Jango? I mean, maybe she's
She
older
wouldn't
than
be
she
it.
looks, but
Are you talking about Emery or Omega?
Emery.
Okay.
So maybe Emery Carr is like a biological sister of Jango.
Oh, that's
Then
interesting.
because then I mean we don't know how old Emery Carr is. They have not confirmed she
She
could be
looks
any age,
about
but
in her early 20s, I would say.
oh
So
no, I think she's definitely
I could
young. Yeah.
push it and say she's in her late teens.
Yeah.
But late teens, early 20s is about where I would say she probably is.
Yeah, she's definitely a young adult. I'm not sure, but I mean, it's just a thought, like possibly a sister of Django's, because we don't really know much about Django canonically, I guess, right? Other than like
Not a
legend
whole
stuff.
lot. Yeah, Legends had this whole big backstory for him, and we haven't got a lot of that in canon. They
Right.
haven't really gone back. A lot of it was explored in Legends in the Bounty Hunter game, and then they did some tie-in material around the Bounty Hunter game, like revealing why was his ship named the Jester Muriel, why is all of this like this. But they haven't really done that for canon. We've got a few Django short stories, but I don't think there's any that I've read, comics or short stories or what have you, that's set before he has Boba.
Hmm.
So before the Phantom Menace.
So moving on from the Boba family,
Yeah, the Fett family, whatever the
the
fuck
Fett
is going on there.
the Fett family, science Fett family, but kind of not moving on. Let's talk about characters that may or may not show up in season three.
Boba Fett.
I think that's an easy one to kind of dismiss, only because it seems obvious, but I also think like it might serve a purpose. I just don't see how it fits in with the story if he were to show up. You know what I mean? But it's possible because he
It's
is the
possible.
brother of.
I think Boba Fett is possible. I think Commander Wolf is likely.
Mhm.
I think that either Cad Bane or Fennec Shand making a return is
I was
very
gonna bring them
likely.
up. Yeah, I was gonna bring them up because they didn't show
One of
up this
those two.
season, which
Yeah.
I thought was weird. But also, there's a random character that was in season one that they introduced and built up a little bit, and then didn't do anything with. And I feel like that person needs to show up, which is
Which
the
character was
Roland
that?
character.
Oh yeah, Roland Durand. Yeah, that guy. I keep forgetting that episode existed. Roland will probably see. Benny will probably see
Right.
from the episode this season. Those would be my best guesses for characters that are going to show up again outside of like the main.
Right. Yeah, because I'm thinking like maybe possibly a Sid redemption arc in the next
I think
season,
that's
and
definitely coming.
maybe he pops
That's
up and helps her
definitely
out or
coming.
something. Yeah.
Uh,
That's my theory for returning characters at least. I mean,
Because it's Star Wars, you're going to have a redemption arc.
of course.
I just read the High Republic Phase Two's Cataclysm, and not to spoil, but I feel a perfectly normal way about how redemption arcs are handled in that book. And by a perfectly normal way, I mean I am screaming, I am crying, I am throwing things at the wall, I am vibrating out of existence. Guys, Phase Two is really good. It's not quite as good as Phase One, but it's really good.
I love that.
Yeah, I think we'll get the main characters returning: Sid, Dr. Hemlock, Emery Carr, Bad Batch, Omega.
Yeah, and then I hope next season two that Crosshair is more of a presence than just two episodes randomly, like he was this season. I hope he's truly like in the show now.
2.5. He got some good moments.
You're right. He got some screen time.
What was it? Tipping Point. We
Right.
got some good moments in Tipping Point. You know who's my wildest thing that I would like to see turn up in the Bad Batch? Eli Vanto.
Why would Vanto show up?
Because he's a logistics officer. Throw him on a random planet or something.
It would be interesting if they went to his planet.
Yeah, Lysatra.
That would be interesting because it's like a little backwatery. So that would be interesting.
I actually know that name not because of Eli Vanto,
Hmm.
but because Jess's character on For Light and Dice, Lysander Ulbrich, is from Lysatra. So I now associate Lysatra with Lysander and not with Eli Vanto, even though canonically, yeah, that's the name of the planet that Eli Vanto comes from.
Right. I think that's a random choice. I like it. I don't know if it fits in the story of Clone Uprising, but you know what? I'm gonna write it down now. You said it
Look,
in this
this
day and
is the
age.
cameo show anyway. Give me the cameo I want.
That's true.
They
And we are
just
reaching the
said
end.
we are, and they just said at the celebration panel that like apparently Dave Filoni has remembered that other writers exist. So he and Jon
Mm.
Favreau have talked to Timothy Zahn about what they're going to do. So like Eli Vanto in more things, please.
Do you think that possibly Thrawn could show up in the Bad Batch?
I think that's unlikely. I think that's highly unlikely given where
Just
he is and what he's doing at this point.
got it.
Because I don't think I think he's still over in the Ascendancy doing the Ascendancy books.
Oh, that's happening simultaneously with Bad Batch.
I want to say some of the Thrawn girlies can tell me about how long, because I know spoilers for Chaos Rising. Skip ahead about 30 seconds if you don't want to hear it. Chaos Rising does turn out to be happening at the same time as the Thrawn Alliance's flashbacks. So I'm wondering how much time takes place in Greater Good and Lesser Evil, where because either he's in the Ascendancy right now or he's on that random planet where he gets exiled.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I don't know. It would be random if they met him or they went to that planet randomly before the Empire shows up. But I think that would kind of disrupt his whole plan of being on the planet and like the whole thing. So I don't know if that works out, but
Hmm.
it seems a little messy. So maybe not.
I'm not sure who else could appear in season three. I'm just curious where they're going to go with season three. I think it's probably going to be Clone Uprising, and we're going to resolve all of the character arcs because I'll bet you season three is going to be the final season. Which, again, at time of recording, the Bad Batch panel has not happened yet, so we do
Right.
not know whether or
For
not it has
sure.
been renewed for a season three, whether season three is going to be the final season, what's going on with it.
Yeah, because I guess I mean it seems obvious, but then again, it is Star Wars, so you never know. These, they could be like, "Oh, there's no season 3, and then we'll do a comic book run instead, or we'll do a book series, or we'll do a live action TV show, or we'll do a movie." Like they don't know anymore. So I guess, I guess that's an interesting thought. I know somebody's brought up the idea of doing an actual animated movie versus doing like a series moving forward. Do you think that's something that is possible, like a Bad Batch movie to tie up 3 seasons or something?
It's possible, but I doubt it.
Hmm.
Just because
The lead time on animation.
lead time on animation and because that's
Yeah.
not Bad Batch isn't getting the same like them announcing. I promise we will not spend the whole time talking about celebration stuff. Them announcing the fact that the Mando stuff is all culminating in a movie. That's one thing because Mando is big in the cultural consciousness. Like people can be reasonably expected to have seen The Mandalorian. You know what The Mandalorian is. If you are not a Star Wars fan, you know what The Mandalorian is. You have seen a Grogu.
Right.
You know what's going on there. Bad Batch, not so much. And I did check it is Monday. Monday,
Okay,
April 10th.
so when you're hearing this, they've already announced
So when
whether or
you're
not
hearing
there's a
this, they've
season
already
3.
announced whether or not there's a season three, and we will have to figure out what we're going to do about. We'll figure it out. We're fine.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I kind of, I'll have to admit, this season I was good. I actually think this was better than season 1. However, I'm kind of over Bad Batch personally. It doesn't give me the same kind of joy that Mandalorian gives me, or really any of the other Star Wars stuff right now. I honestly, I'm even more excited to read books that have come out 3 or 4 years ago, and that's saying something for me because I don't listen to books that often or even care that much, and they excite me more than the show does.
Yeah, I think for me, my issue with how I've been approaching the Bad Batch is that the Bad Batch has never to me felt like its own thing.
Hmm.
It's never felt like it's something that's new and fresh and exciting to me. It's felt like something that is a continuation of the Clone Wars. It's just, do you want more Clone Wars? Here's more Clone Wars. Everything from the animation style to
Right.
wrapping up plot points from the Clone Wars that never got addressed to just how, yeah, it's a bunch of the same characters and stuff from Clone Wars. Like, so for me, I like watching the Bad Batch every week. I get really really excited to watch it. But I'm never expecting to see anything new. I'm expecting to see more of the same. It's exactly the same thing as watching, like, going back and watching the Clone Wars again, or, you know, finding a new comic with the Clone Wars people in it. It's just going to be more of the same. And I'm fine with that. I don't need everything to be fresh and new and revolutionary. I loved Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that was basically just, did you like the prequels? Here's more
Right.
prequels. But
Yeah.
for me, yeah, Bad Batch, I never go into Bad Batch thinking, wow, this is going to be something exciting and new. I don't think they've really branched it into something that has its own identity
Yeah.
until after Truth and Consequences this season. Back half of this season was wild.
Yeah.
It was
I agree.
insane. It was so good. And I liked the first half, but I remember you and I were down on a lot of the episodes in the first half. We were down on the two-part Sereno arc. We were, you know, kind of down a little bit on like Faster, although we had hoped to keep the morale up. But I remember you and I were just sort of, yeah, these episodes are there.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the season was like, what is going on? This is crazy. I love this.
Yeah, Clone Conspiracy really. I mean, Tribe was good, I think, because, you know, who doesn't love Wookiees? But Clone Conspiracy really popped off. Like, that's when they were like, hey, do you want like the actual second half of this season? Like, we're going to start a whole new story.
Yeah.
Like, here
And I
it
would
is.
say, well, Clone Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences did a good job of wrapping up some of the stuff that they had set up since Aftermath, and wrapping up sort of the Clone Wars of it all, and having Palpatine be the one to wrap all of that up was a great choice. Right. I loved that. And then the second half, it began to move into the identity that the show is going to be, which is this show about, you know, what happens to the clones after they are phased out, because the Empire clearly wants to use them for its own purposes. So
Agreed.
that, I have nothing else on it at that point. How do you want to end this episode, Bradley? Do you want to do final thoughts on the season overall?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do final thoughts on the season overall. So Bradley, we'll start with you. Overall thoughts on season 2 of The Bad Batch. What did you like? What did you not like? Where did you land?
I thought it was a good season. I think it was much better than season 1. I mean, if I were to like give rankings to all the episodes of like season 1 and then rankings of like 1 through 5 or something like that, and then try to rank season 2, I think season 2 would win. I'm pretty sure. I would definitely need to go back and check, because I'm looking at the list of season 1 episodes, and I mean, obviously like the Ryloth arc and stuff like that I liked a lot, you know, so stuff like that I liked, but then like with this season, I really liked Fee. I thought she was a great addition to the show. I really liked the Tribe episode. I thought it was cute with the Wookiees and stuff like that, and Gunji coming back was nice. Clone Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences, you know that stuff was really good, because it really popped off the season. For me, that was kind of more of the start of the season, and then yeah, the back half of the season was really, I think, much stronger and emotionally stronger as well. Especially with the Crosshair stuff, this season was really good. Overall, I mean, I would give it a B+. I think it was a pretty decent season. I think that the show episodes, at least, have become stronger than last season's. The standalone ones, especially, last season, they just did not feel cohesive to the season as much, versus now they still kind of feel like one-off episodic, kind of like, you know, like, oh yeah, let's go do this week, but they had something to say, this, you know, which was better. And then I think overall, I like where the story is going. I have no idea where it's going. I just like it. Yeah, I think that they are building to something. I just don't know what it is, especially with, you know, the little tease at the end of, you know, this new possibly clone character. So, you know, we'll see. What about you?
Yeah, I agree on a lot of points. I would also give the show B+. I thought this season I think the first half of it struggled a lot to find its identity, and there was a lot of one-offs that were more about introducing characters and setting up world state than they were about advancing those plots necessarily, or advancing those characters. I think looking back, all of the episodes did turn out to be necessary. I'm glad all of them were there. This season is structured a lot better than season 1 was. The characters were also allowed to make bolder choices than they were in season 1. I like how the status quo got an absolute fucking hammer taken to it. And not even really at the end. It got an absolute fucking hammer taken to it like midway through the season. And they were like, oh, you thought there was going to be a status quo here. No, there's not. I really like that. I like the direction they're going with the characters. I think it's very interesting. I am at least invested in finding out what happens. Now I'm questioning whether or not I'm invested because I actually care what happens to the characters or because I just want to know the answer to the mystery. That's a question that I'm going to have to grapple with. But overall, I thought this season was a marked improvement on season 1. I thought season 1 was good. This season has upgraded to pretty good. So yeah, overall I'm leaving very positive feelings. I think it says a lot that I was delighted that everyone was busy posting Mando spoilers and people weren't spoiling the Bad Batch.
Right. Yeah.
Which was a very awful thing to think, but I was like, oh yeah, I am sort of happy that some of these episodes, because I didn't get to watch them until I got home. So yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with the season. I thought it was pretty good. I thought we would end by saying our least favorite episode of the season and our favorite episode of the season.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, and since I've sprung that on you, Bradley, would you like me to go first?
Yeah, go first so I can look at them real quick so I can
All
decide.
right. So my least favorite episode of the season, and it's like saying it's my least favorite sandwich. It's still a sandwich. It's a functional sandwich that works, and it's a necessary part of the meal. But I do have to say, on its own, I'm gonna say my least favorite is probably Entombed. That's what I'm gonna go with. I think it ranks slightly below Metamorphosis for me, just because I wasn't a big fan of Metamorphosis in hindsight, since I felt like the Batch didn't get to do a whole lot in that one either, like as far as character choices and things. But there is that one scene from Metamorphosis where everybody has the wonderful little character reactions. So yeah, I think Entombed was a fun episode. It was probably the one I felt that had the least character development for the Batch. It was really about introducing Fee, and Fee doesn't even develop really that much. It's mainly just here's who Fee is as a person. My favorite episode of the season, fuck me, this one's hard. Oh, this one's hard. I do think my top episode is going to be The Summit. I think it ekes out over Clone Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences just barely, only because The Summit is so fun to watch. Like, just a really good, solid heist episode. Steven Stanton is here as Tarkin to be evil. They had that great little conversation at the table. Everybody gets something to do during the heist. It was absolutely fantastic. I think I'm going to rank that episode as the top of the season, although it might change. The Clone Conspiracy might rise above it 2 hours from now. It changes. What about you, Bradley, now that I've vamped for time?
So I was looking back at them. I agree with you with Entombed. I think that was my least favorite. Funny enough, Fee is kind of one of my favorite characters, but you're like you said, she doesn't really do anything, or she doesn't have a lot of growth in that episode. So it's kind of a waste to have her be the focus because she doesn't do much. I still love her, and I think she's a great character. I think she gets a lot better towards the end, especially, with like the Pabu stuff and kind of being like, look, I have a life outside of being kind of a pirate queen, essentially. And I just did not care for that one as much. I will say it's barely, for me, it ekes a little bit over Faster, but I'm not really a tech girly, so I don't necessarily like care about the Faster episode as much as some people hope. But I
shout out to Hope. We hope you are well after that
right.
finale, even though I know you are not.
Probably destroyed. However, I think see, with the one I like the most is interesting because I really enjoyed like The Outpost, because I like Crosshair episodes. I think like that character is really good.
Really good episode.
I don't know if I really like that one. I also really enjoyed Tribe, not because it was a good episode per se, but just because I think that like it was a fun episode. So it's hard to say like what I think the best episode is. I'm gonna go with Outpost only because I feel like it was a turning point for Crosshair's character arc, and I like that they finally got there with it. And that was what I wanted to see with that character. And I've been waiting for. So I'm going to say Outpost was my favorite.
Awesome. Well, just as a quick reminder for everyone, here's how the next few weeks are going to work. So next week, we will be doing Mando Season 3, Episode 0. That episode was recorded damn near 2 months ago.
Little did we know.
A month and a half ago before
on.
the show aired. So we will remind you at the top of that episode. That episode actually was recorded right before either of us had ever seen Mando. So it will be a what were our thoughts going into Mando without having seen any of it. After that, we will begin our Mando Season 3 coverage. We've got some really cool guests lined up for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to take it a little easy and have fun with that just because we're not having to cover that week to week as it comes out, which is very exciting. After that, Bradley, do we want to talk about after that?
Yeah, let's talk about afters.
We now know that Ahsoka is coming out in August. We found that out yesterday as of recording. So our Mando coverage, by my count,
okay, so here's the definitive thing how it's going to go so
okay.
far. So start, like you said, we're going to start Mando next week. This will be during the week of the finale. So it'll be a nice big, like kind of, oh, what we thought was going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen because the finale is that week. Then we'll do our coverage.
Here were our predictions, and then you will be able to watch the finale on Wednesday.
We'll do that for 8 weeks, and then we'll have a recap episode in June. In between the end of June and the month of July, and we don't know when in August Ahsoka is going to air, but in between that time, we were thinking of doing Visions Season 1. We're probably going to squeeze that in throughout that month.
Because we had done Visions Season 1, with Season 2 dropping at some point this year. I don't remember off the top of my head. We did feel like one episode where we just went through the highlights of the first Vision season wasn't quite enough in retrospect.
Right.
So we may do, two shorts per episode, or we may do 2 episodes per week. It really just depends on when we can figure out how to fill the time between that and Ahsoka, and we have everything planned up through Ahsoka is where we are going with this show for the rest of the summer. So you can stick around for Mando Season 3, then Visions Season 1 we will do. We're going to take those a little bit slower, and then it'll lead into Ahsoka, and who knows what we're going to do after Ahsoka.
Right, because, maybe they'll let us know when the Skeleton Crew comes, and that can help plan out whether or not we can squeeze in possibly Vision Season 2 in between Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew. It just depends on when they feel like dropping all this stuff. We don't really know. We'll keep you updated as always.
And I will say, as far as thinking about future things, because we have a little time to do that, I am going to say right up front that there are going to be some changes around here as we go through Mando and Visions. Probably the biggest is within a couple of weeks. What I think we're going to do is we're going to either pause or slow down the animated TikToks. So if you follow us on TikTok and you see the animations, we are revisiting some of that. And we are also looking into additional stuff that we can do for the YouTube channel and other things. So definitely keep an eye on our social media, especially on our Twitter and our Instagram and our TikTok, where you can find us on Twitter at Goldsquadrongays, and you can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Goldsquadrongays. Keep an eye on that because we're not 100% sure what changes we're going to be making, but we are going to be making some changes, so that's going to be the best way to stay ahead of what those changes are as we move the brand through 2023 and into 2024, the dopest year in Star Wars. Alrighty, well, that's all we have for the Bad Batch Season 2. It was pretty good. Can't wait for Season 3 in 2025, probably.
But yeah, now that I think about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, Bradley, just go ahead and run the socials.
Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gays. Did Charles fuck something up? Send us a message at goldsquadrongays@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at Gold Squad Gays. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gays. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gays, where we post the podcast as well as exclusive content. Please join us next week and every week for more of Gold Squadron Gays.
Yuri Lowenthal's character.
Pause. You are bouncing and hitting the mic constantly.
Sorry. Where do you want me to come in again?